I'm going to show you one last example on how to visualize these equivalent fractions, and then I'm going to show you how you can practice by yourself at home using hands-on unit fractions using strips of paper. So first take a look at our two figures, two rectangles. These are different sizes than our previous rectangles in our pizza circle examples. So let's divide this first one up into thirds. So again, we're going to label the denominator how many units we divided the figure into, and each one's going to represent one equal unit. And then on the bottom here, or let's shade it on the bottom here, we're going to divide it up into 3 units. And we're going to add a line across the middle. And now we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total units. So we could say each one of these units represents 6. As the denominator, and each one represents 1 unit fraction of the whole. So if I shaded in 2 of these, we know that out of our 3, we shaded in 2. So what amount or how much would I need to shade in for our bottom figure to be an equivalent fraction to our top figure? So we know the bottom's going to be 6 because we have 6 unit. But how many units, how many sixths do I need to make an equivalent fraction or the same amount shaded in as our top, as our number 1 and number 2? So if we shade in 1, shade in 2, still not the same amount. If we shade it in here, still a little short. Shade in here, we can see that we now have the exact same amount as figure 1. So how many sixths or how many units did that take for our bottom figure? We shaded in 1, 2, 3, 4 total units. So the answer to our question is that it would take 4 sixths to equal 2 thirds, as seen in our example. Now what I'd like you to do is take a look. I'll erase this. Is get a sheet of paper and follow along as I do. So this is just a regular piece of paper. It can be blank. It can have lines on it. And we're going to fold it hamburger style all the way neatly in half. So I got a nice fold, and I'm going to seal that side down. So now we got half a sheet of paper. Now I want you to fold that hot dog style. So just from my half, we're going to fold it another time. Nice and neat again, right on the line. So we want our figures to be equal. So now it's looking like this. And we're going to do one last time, hot dog style again, so the skinny way. So we're going to fold it one last time and make sure it's nice and even. Should be something like that. So now once you unfold it, you can fold it all the way out. It's going to kind of look like this with creases all up and down it. And I want you to nice and neatly cut along each of your creases that you made. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 strips of paper that will all look like this at the end. You'll have 8 of these. Now what we're going to do with these, and I'll let you have some fun with this, is we're going to label these just as I did with this one. And we're going to divide these strips as our figures. into unit fractions. So you can see the first one I did was 2 units. So I have 1 unit and another 1 unit as far as to make our 2. And then I did one that is 4 units. So our unit fraction, 1/4. We had halves, now we had 1/4. Now we're going to divide. I divided one into 1/3 into thirds. And then I did another one into sixths. I would like you to do these 4 and label them just as I did. So you're going to do equal parts, as we always do with fractions, and then label them inside for each unit. And then we're going to work with these to help us understand this concept of equivalent fractions. And for the other strips, I'll let you have fun and come up with your own. And you can kind of test them out with other ones and see if you can come up with your own unit fractions that are equivalent. So what we can do with this 1/2 is we can fold it in half right on the line. So we now have 1/2. So this, what we just did was we took our paper that was in halves, and right here we folded this side over to this half. So now all that we see is 1 unit of our 2. So this is all that we're seeing, just like this. So we went from here to there. So now let's take your force and we'll do the same thing. So we have our force. And so we're going to divide, or we're going to cut it in half, just as we did with the last one. So now we're going to be here. And we can see that our 2 pieces of paper are of equal length. So now what we want to do to see is we want to mark how many fourths are equivalent to the amount of halves. So taking our 2 papers, we can open it and we can see the first one I have is my force. And I can see that when I fold this paper, I have 2 fourths. And when I undo my halves to make a half, I only have 1. So we saw that 2 fourths equals 1/2. Okay. Now what if we took that force and we went around each of our lines that we divided, each unit. So we're going to divide it into, we're going to fold it on each of the lines. There's 1, make 2, or make 3 folds. So now we have 1 unit of the 4. So we can clearly see that 1 unit of the 4 is not equal to the 1/2. So we can then say that 1/4 and 1/2 are not, we'll exit out, are not equivalent fractions, because we can see that they are not the same amount. So I want you to mess around with the other ones and come up with some of your own and try and find some equivalent fractions on your own. Do this with a parent, a brother or sister, and try and show them how you can come up with equivalent fractions and fractions that are not equivalent, and explain to them why.